This is Pastor T from Stop Falling for the Okie Doke with some more commentary about where we are stumbling into some difficulty with these legislatures and gun laws. Now, we have legislators who allege to serve us in states that have suffered gun massacres, and yet the people who pay them more than the salaries they earn from our tax dollars, the gun lobby who basically own them part and parcel, will not allow them to even contemplate reasonable gun legislation, such as banning semi-automatic and automatic handguns and long guns in the United States. Basically, those are weapons to kill, and unless you're in the military or the police force, you have no need for a semi-automatic or an automatic weapon. Yet, our streets are full of them, and mentally deranged people get a hold of them, go running into our schools and kill people. And then these cowards can't even grow a pair and vote for some legislation that makes some sense. And there are several reasons for that, and I wanted to just go through them very briefly now so that we will understand the game that's being played and what we need to do to overcome it. The first thing is gerrymandering. Long story short, that is the way that the election districts are drawn by state legislatures. State legislatures draw the election districts for the state legislative elections and also for the congressional elections. And depending upon what state you're in and which party is in power, they often engage in gerrymandering, where they pack districts full of their voters and diminish and dilute the votes of people from the other party in such a way that they have an unfair advantage beyond what numbers would ordinarily dictate in the number of election districts or congressional districts that they have. And so what we need is a system where election districts can be drawn, ideally computer drafted election districts that will not take into account all of the little tricks that they try to pull to add to their advantage. Because frankly, we don't owe anybody a long career in an elected office. No one owns or deserves to be in elected office. The only thing they can do to earn elected office is earn the votes of the people every 2 or 4, or if you're in the U.S. Senate, 6 years. And if you have not done enough to earn the votes of your constituents, you're fired. Go home. Do something else. So, the first thing, we need to eliminate gerrymandering. We need to have election districts that are drawn fairly, so that Democrats don't have an unfair advantage in Maryland, Republicans don't have an unfair advantage in Texas and Wisconsin, Democrats don't have an unfair advantage in Illinois, etc. And frankly, I don't care whose advantage that works out to in the long run. But what that does mean is that there will be more election districts that are competitive, which means then that our elected public representatives, in theory, would have to be concerned about what their voters think, rather than what their big campaign donors think, because they won't have what is called a safe district, and they'll have to run competitively in order to win. Gerrymandering is the first problem. The second problem is campaign financing. Right now, we as average people can donate a certain amount of money, especially at the federal level, but then political action committees can donate goo-gobs of money, almost unlimited amounts of money, that will work again to our disadvantage, because then you have special interests like the NRA or pharmaceuticals industry or whomever who are buying members of Congress who will pass legislation to their advantage and oppose legislation to our advantage, and we don't really have anything that we can do about it. And so campaign finance reform means, number one, the repeal of the Citizens United, or overturning, legislating beyond the Citizens United ruling of the Supreme Court, so that then no longer would corporations and political action committees, corporate interests, be considered, that their campaign contributions will not be considered to be speech, because it's not. All it is wealthy people buying elections for their own interest. And so instead, Citizens United needs to be overturned. Again, not to anyone's advantage in particular. I don't care about either political party. I just want both of them and whatever other parties that come up that might actually speak more to our interests than either of them to have to be responsive to the voters. The other thing would be public financing of campaigns, so that some of our monies would go to supporting, funding candidacies of people who are running for office, so that then they have public funding. Everybody can get access to some money to run for office, and no one is able to just to buy an election by having boatloads of money coming in from private interests, from special interests that, again, don't care anything about us at all. The other thing that I would reference is the need for term limits. Some of these people stay in these offices for decades, 30, 40, 50 years. Again, find something else to do. We don't owe you a living for your entire life. I would suggest that there be a term limit of 6 consecutive terms in the House of Representatives. That's 12 years. 2 consecutive terms in the U.S. Senate. That's 12 years. And then they have to move on, at least for one election cycle, before they come back, if the voters will have them back. And by then there might be somebody else there that's doing as good a job or better. But that also puts us in a position where we're no longer yoked to people who may or may not be serving our interests for decades, who are there doing the bidding of special interests and big donors, campaign donors. Now that does mean, of course, that there are some people who might be doing a great job, and we will lose access to their services for at least an election cycle. But I'm of the mind that there are enough talented people in our electorate that more than just this handful of repeat candidates can serve in those positions and serve us well. We need to fix this. We need to fix it now. And I remind you again, especially for those that are wrestling with these office holders who are not representing us and are serving the NRA more than they're serving us, serving the gun lobby and gun manufacturers more than the citizens that they should be trying to serve and protect. Hashtag vote right or you're fired. Over and out.